Welcome back to EconLine, everyone. This lesson is on producer surplus. It is following up the video and lesson on consumer surplus, so if you haven't seen that yet, please check that out before you view this one. So looking at producer surplus, again, it's going to be consumer surplus, but the opposite side of the coin. So instead of looking at the buyers in the market, now we're going to look at the situation from the seller's perspective. So we have 4 people here, and their costs associated with producing a given service. In this case, it's painting a house. So we have 4 people. We have Mary, who it costs $900 for her to paint a house. Frida, $800. Georgia, $600. And for some reason, Grandma is in this mix for $500. I'm assuming at this point that they're implying that Grandma has a lower opportunity cost in wages and so on. So that's why she's willing to paint the house for a lower cost than Mary, for example, who may have a very high-paying job where she'd be giving up some time. Setting all that aside, let's just get back to the basics here. Grandma's willing to do this for $500, Georgia for $6, Frida for $8, and Mary for $9. All right, let's take a look then at the specific graph. Mark that in your notes as well if you're using the companion worksheet that goes along with this. This is the specific graph that goes along with producer surplus. So if the price in the market is less than $500, then we see that nobody is willing to paint the house, and that's represented by this part of the graph here. Once the price rises above $500 or from $500 and up, Grandma is willing to paint the house. So now we see our first person enter the market. If the price goes up from that $600 to $800 range, so if we hit at least $600 and then up through $800, both Grandma and Georgia are willing to paint houses. So what we would see now is here's Grandma's involvement, and then Georgia's going to paint as well. So you get the idea here that basically as the price goes up, more people are going to enter. Okay, so what's the next step here? Producer surplus. As I said before, it cost Grandma $500 to paint the house. Well, suppose the price in the market that was being offered to people painting houses was $600. Now, although Grandma was willing to paint the house for only $5, although that's her cost, the buyers in the market don't necessarily know that. So they're willing to pay, again, everybody in the market pays the same price. So, she's going to receive $600 for painting the house even though her cost was only $500. The difference between them, we would call producer surplus. So that's a little bit additional money that was returned or revenue that was returned to her above and beyond the cost. As the price rises and more producers enter the market, this is because there's surplus being created for them. So suppose the price rises, here we're in that $500 to $600 range. Suppose the price now goes from that $500 to $600 range up into the $600 to $800 range. So let's say it hits exactly $800. Well, at this level, Grandma is still producing, but now Georgia is in as well. So Grandma, who was, her cost hasn't changed. So she was only getting $100 in surplus initially. But now she gets this extra boost because the price in the market is higher. And this boost is equal to $200. What about Georgia? Georgia's cost is $600, so she's also getting $200 in surplus. And when you add it all up, the total producer surplus in this case is $500. So you can see then, as I jump to the more theoretical graph, again, on your sheet, that that producer surplus is equal to this triangle. It is the difference between the price and the cost to the sellers. That's how we consider the supply. So, producer surplus price minus cost. And I'm just going to write cost, but note that the rest is to sellers. So this triangle gives us producer surplus. And much like we saw in the last example then, as the price rises, and in this case it rises from P1 to P2, then the amount of producer surplus in the market increases. So the surplus, the triangle here, has got larger. So here's where we were at before. But now when the price has gone up, the buyer or the sellers that were already in the market, and that's this range right here, the original, they have gained some additional surplus. And then surplus was created for some additional producers, so they enter the market as well. Ultimately, it's consumer and producer surplus that entices people into the market. We get into a question of fairness and so on in just a moment as we discuss efficiency in markets and then some of the other more abstract consequences of consumer and producer surplus.